difficulties. Welcome again, and thank you for joining us. I am Kristen McIntosh. I'm a board member of ACCH, and I will also be your moderator today. So I'll be moderating this evening's Let's Talk virtual series, the Ontario General Elections edition. So without further ado, let's get started with a rendition of the national anthem. So if you're able, please stand. Sorry, hold on, there's some back. Okay, we better? Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we would now like to perform the Land of Acknowledgement. It will be performed in both French and English. So over to you, Oreofe, and then Osho Bouguet, it will do it in French.
Thank you. Halton, as we know today, is rich in history and moral tradition of many First Nation and Métis, from the Anishinaabe, the Ottawandaran, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis. These lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions: land, water, plants, animals, ancestors that walk before us, and all of the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit for sharing their traditional territories with us.
Merci, Miss Christine. Halton, tel que nous la connaissons aujourd'hui, est riche de l'histoire et des traditions modernes de nombreuses Premières Nations et Métis, des Anishinaabe aux Adirondacks, en passant par les Haudenosaunee et les Métis. Ces terres entourant les Grands Lacs sont ancrées dans l'histoire autochtone. Alors que nous nous réunissons aujourd'hui sur ces terres de traité, nous avons la responsabilité d'honorer et de respecter les quatre directions: la terre, les eaux, les plantes, les animaux, les ancêtres qui ont marché avant nous et tous les merveilleux éléments de la création qui existent. Nous tenons à reconnaître et à remercier la Première Nation Mississaugas of the Credit d'avoir partagé son territoire traditionnel avec nous. Merci et thank you.
What we know is election day Thursday. Anyone who is registered can cast their ballot. But what are some other ways we can fulfill our civic duty? So Andrea Horvath is running for Ontario's New Democratic Party, and we have today with us the NDP candidate Diane and Drummond. They're going to discuss about how their mandate impacts the community, and listen to why we they're the party that they represent. So these are things that we're going to learn today. So I will now turn it over to our welcome.
Thank you, Christine, for being the host today. We know that sometimes we get challenges with our internet, but that's okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Let's Talk Virtual series. ACCH stands for the African Caribbean Council of Halton. We welcome you kindly to this not August occasion, but the second series of our fire chat with our party candidates. So it's our pleasure to welcome the NDP candidates today. Just wanted to share a bit of vision of this organization, ACCH. Our mandate, which is our vision, is to educate, to advocate, build, empower, and strengthen our African Caribbean community. Our education with respect to our mission is to have an inclusive and equitable African Caribbean community in Halton by advancing our social, economic, political, educational, and professional empowerment. And that's why we're having one of that advocacy today with our political community. Our membership is growing, and we have over 100 members currently, but we are growing stronger. And our focus is on providing various programs that have immense social impact to many people so that we can increase our belongingness and create a safe space to connect for many individuals, business, children, and youths, as well as newcomers to our community. ACCH has programs that we have completed throughout our existence. That included our flagship program, which is the Black History Month proclamation and celebration in all the towns of the Halton region. We use the Black History Month program to celebrate our history and to educate our community about the entire Halton residents. It's also a flagship program that allows us to continue to make cultural awareness in our community and to engage our youth so that they can take pride in their history and their culture. Our monthly talk virtual series is part of the ways that we disseminate our information and educate our community. And that's why we're having this electoral session with all of the candidates for the general election this year. The goal is to impact and affect our community, to build awareness, and of course, also to help us be more inclusive, because as we know, our lives are rooted deeply in our history, and with education, we can continue to discover who we are, and we can collectively be more inclusive in our communities that we belong. So the African Caribbean Council of Halton also helps to give back through volunteering so that our members and youths can gain life skills through leadership, presentation, and to build their confidence. Some of the volunteers in our community also read the land acknowledgement today. In 2022, we started a new initiative called the African Caribbean Black Excellency Scholarship Award. This is a new initiative that we are collaborating with other grassroots communities to support our children and to encourage them to go beyond and above what they know so that they can feel that they belong, that they matter, and that they are valued. So our goal at ACCH is to continue to promote the concept of hope that we can be more than the color of our skin or the pronunciation of our unique names or our accent, and that the hope and vision is that for all African Caribbean residents in Halton to feel that they belong and to feel that they have a right to express their uniqueness and their talents. On this note, I would ask all of you to please sit tight as we hear from our distinguished panelists, members of aspirants seeking electoral positions. It is our goal that this is an open discourse where we would ask questions and be respectful, but hopefully we will hear more from the candidates so that we can be better informed and be able to make the right decisions when it's time to vote, because your vote is your power and every vote counts. So I welcome everyone again to this beautiful evening. Please sit tight as we continue to hear from our elected officers. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Adosa, for the welcome address. So we'd now like to turn this over and welcome Ms. Diane Ballantyne, and I hope I said your name correctly. I've been butchering a few this evening, so I do apologize. We welcome you this evening with us.
Thanks very much. It's Ballantyne, like Valentine, the day in February. It's okay. Are you wanting me to do a little bit of an introduction, or what would you like? What would you like me to do?
Yes, please, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just, give us an introduction of your mandate, a bit about yourself, how your journey, your political journey. We'd love to hear.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. So I always think that it's important. My name's Diane Ballantyne, and I represent the NDP for Wellington Halton Hills. So that's north of the 401. It's this wild riding, Wellington Halton Hills, which is this donut around Guelph. So Guelph is its own thing, and I represent this donut around that urban center. So I think that it's important for people to understand, the old adage that people don't care what you know until they know why you care. So I want to tell you a little bit about why I care, why I'm putting myself out, in the public to put my name on a ballot. And part of it is because of what my family journey has been. So my grandparents are from Nova Scotia, both sets. My maternal grandmother had 17 children. So my mom was one of 17 children. And she was married, my grandfather, she was married to, he lost an arm in a mining accident in the coal mines in New Waterford, Nova Scotia. And he was illiterate until the day he passed away, which was in the early 2000s. So that's the family that I come from. And so the concept of social mobility, where you want something better for the next generation, is what drives me. So that was my grandparents. My mom and most of those siblings, the 17, they were all born at home except for the last one. No twins, and they all made it through. We are sturdy stock. And only a handful of them went to high school. So my mom worked really hard as a young parent in the early 1970s to try to build a better life for her children. And she succeeded. Both my brother and I managed to be able to go to post-secondary and secure careers. And I know that part of my success is because there were systems in place and services in place that helped me where my family wasn't necessarily able to. So a quality publicly funded education, affordable tuition so that I could work part-time at Pizza Hut and still pay for my university and not have debt. I now have 3 kids of my own. They're 21, 24, and 25, and their lives are not going to be the same as mine. The systems that were in place, that were built, and I'm not saying they were perfect. I'm not trying to be this as all the good old days kind of thing. There's lots of erosion that's happened to our social safety net. And so I know that my kids don't have the same kind of opportunities to be able to afford a house, to be able to get a decent job that has benefits. The idea that they would be able to, I'm talking to young people because I'm a secondary school teacher, and I'm talking to young people who say, I don't even know if I can afford to have children. And I'm thinking that was not a weight that I carried on my shoulders when I was 20 years old. That is not what I was thinking about. And that's what young people are thinking about now. So I've been a secondary school teacher for about 27 years. I teach international law, world cultures, world religions, cultural anthropology. Those are the kinds of courses that I teach. And I'm very committed to helping build a better life for young people. So you talked about hope, you talked about education. That's my jam. That's what it gets me up in the morning to be able to try to work to make a difference. And so the NDP's values are about trying to build a better life for regular working people. I come from regular working people. I might have a profession now because I'm a high school teacher, but I come from regular working people. And I know that regular working people are having a harder time now than they have had in a very long time. And then you layer on privilege and racism on top of that, and that just makes it harder. And my my North Star is about working towards creating as just a society as I can. And so the NDP's values match my values. And I've been a community leader for a really long time, developing LGBTQ plus programs for inclusion, an Indigenous memorial after those really awful discoveries or unearthings. Indigenous people knew about these unmarked graves for such a long time. I'm an elected county councillor, so I ran in 2018, and I am a municipal councillor now. So I've had experience for a long time building, in particular at the municipal level, more green programs to try to reduce our greenhouse gases and carbon footprint. And that's at the municipal level what I've really been focused on. So I don't want to take up too much more time. That's what I'm doing. The party's values align with what I've been building and what my career has been focusing on.
Make sure to join the fucking Ladi Ladia Foundation group for amazing clothing before I rape you.
Okay. So that seems like some sort of what we would refer to as Zoom bombing. So that's unfortunate, but I've been teaching online for a long time, so I understand that that happens sometimes. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to my other candidates here, and they can share a little bit about what brings them here too. And I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards too.
Thank you so much, Diane. And I just want to actually say my father was actually a sibling of 18, also born, all of them in Nova Scotia. So we have deep roots.
I don't know how those women did it. Honestly, I've had 3 and I can't even imagine.
This
All right.
16.
Over to you, Andrew.
Well, now I feel left out because I don't have nearly the colorful history that you guys have in your family backstories. But I'm Andrew Drummond. I'm the NDP candidate in Burlington, and I've been fighting for social equality for essentially my entire life. The quirky thing about me that I like to tell people is I'm a world champion board gamer. And that's sort of my crazy, quirky individual thing. And I'm the first Canadian ever elected to the board of directors at the World Board Gaming Championships. So I have a great amount of experience in that particular niche area. But really, I mean, what I'm here for in this election is because the education system isn't good enough anymore. The healthcare system is crumbling. I have a personal passion for workers' rights and a desperate need for a better minimum wage and for every worker to have paid sick days and not have to go to work when their child's sick at home. But the really big one that our region desperately needs, and what I think this election is mostly going to be about, is affordable housing, and how much we desperately need better affordable housing in the Halton region. Right now, if you think about it, at a regional level, there are about 4,000 subsidized housing units for the region of Halton. And there are more than 4,000 families that are on the wait list for subsidized housing. When the wait list is bigger than the supply available, it means we have a real problem. So one of the big reasons that I am here is to make sure that the people in our communities who need help get that help. I don't want to take a huge amount of time because I want to leave it mostly for questions, but that's sort of the quick hits about me and what it is that I'm doing here and what I'm hoping to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot of what you both have mentioned, you know, around sustainability, social equality, equity, and education. Much of these are things that, you know, have a reach to many of us that are on the call right now and within the community. So we're interested in learning a little bit more on the initiatives around a lot of those subject areas. So at this time, I'd like to turn the call over to our friend Emmanuel Okorafora for some Q&A. Let's get some questions going. And please do, folks, if you can.
Sorry, Christine, I'm just going to jump in. We do have Ryan.
Oh my
Ryan Vincent Smith is also an MPP candidate. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Ryan. That's probably when I had technical. I apologize.
No problem. I'm actually a nominee. I get my nomination on the 19th to become a candidate. And I do Oakville North, Burlington. So that's upper middle, and a little bit of Walker's Line, and Lower Based, and 9th Line. So yeah, my name is Ryan Vincent Smith. I guess to get to know me, to get my backstory. So I'm an inspiring recording artist, an actor / business owner. I'm starting out my own business. It will be focusing on the BIPOC community, as well as Canadian creators as a whole. And I have been diagnosed with lupus since 2014, and I do dialysis for 2018 for Monday and Friday for like 3 hours. So over time, I realized that if I'm going through it, other people are going through it. So I try to inspire through my life and motivate. I'm focusing on housing, affordable housing, healthcare, childcare, because I know in my community, in my family, there's a lot of issues with that as well. So I can just imagine what is going on in the world that we can't see or hear about. I want to be that voice for them, to bring the community together. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I will be looking forward to hearing more about you. And it's inspiring. And thank you for being so transparent with you know, sharing your lupus diagnosis. And, you know, it's so relatable, and representation is key. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Have I missed anybody else while I was technically declined? Okay, perfect. Okay, Emmanuel, if you're ready, we'll move over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for taking time out of the day to join us for today's event. And I'm glad to hear from each one of our representatives today. So it is now time for the question and answers portion of the meeting. And if there are any questions, please feel free to raise your hands or type in the chat and you'll be called upon. So while people are thinking of the questions, we do have some questions here. So could any one of you please better elaborate on your mandates?
So I can start with that.
Yeah, sure.
As I mentioned in my opening remarks, the idea behind the values of the NDP are about how do we make life better for regular working people? How do we try to address inequity, a lack of affordability? How do we make lives better for regular working families? And so our policies are shaped around that. So you use the word mandate, and I guess I would call it more of a philosophy or a value direction, that when you make decisions in your life or for your policy in your political party, you want to kind of have your true north, or where is the focus, the touchstone of where all of your decisions go back to, right? And so if you're deciding about where it is that you want to live and it's about providing a better life for your children, you have to keep thinking about keeping your children in the center of that decision. And so the NDP's focus, or their touchstone, or their North Star, is about regular working families. It's not about rich developers and Doug Ford's buddies and how they figure out how to get plum positions and a variety of different benefits because of their association. It's about all the rest of us that go to work every day and are trying to figure out, how do we pay our bills when inflation is going up and our wages are going down, or our real power of our wages are going down. And so that's really the mandate or the philosophy behind the party. And that's what I'm here to fight for.
Thank you so much for the clarification. Would anyone else like to elaborate on what Ms. Diane said?
Well, just to add in that, I mean, one of the big problems, certainly in our community in Burlington, is people can't afford to live there. People can't afford to stay living there. People's kids are in a state where they think, there is no way I am ever going to be able to have a home of my own and live in the same community as my parents and their parents did. And we're starting to establish these communities that are at risk of not being able to continue. And that's one of the things that I think we really need to be focused on, getting people the things that they need, that fixing the crumbling schools, fixing the things in our society that are falling apart, making sure that we have a plan to fix that and to drive a better way forward.
Thank you so much. Madam Medosa, you have your hand up.
Yes, Emmanuel, thank you. Really want to thank you for sharing the three candidates, Diane, as well as Andrew and Ryan. Diane, I guess my question for you, you mentioned that since 2018, you've been with the municipality in terms of being actively involved. And I know part of what your passion in being in the election is, you feel that there's an erosion of safety, social safety. And so I guess my question is sort of twofold. While you were with the municipal government in Wellington and Halton region, what initiatives were you able to drive with respect to African Caribbeans residing in that region? Because you did talk about developing a more inclusive space for the LGBT and the indigenous people. But as you're aware, there are also lots of African Caribbeans residents residing in that region. So I would like to know what initiatives that you were directly or indirectly involved with. And I also would like you to please perhaps elaborate more on the systems that were built that I know you talked about affordable housing and education. I want to focus more on education. Just let me be more specific. With respect to education, what policies do you think that should be in place that would provide a more inclusive Wellington, Halton region, Halton Hills? Because during our Black History Month that we had for the last 3 years, residents of that region have said openly that they face systematic racism in the education system. So I would like you to please provide to us as the candidates for the NDP, what policies are you going to drive with education in that region? And then for Mr. Andrew, my question is, you actually focus on, you said one of the key issues for the elections, and we all rightly, I rightly agree with you. I will speak for myself, is affordable housing, which is in the Burlington region. I also will recall that during the Black History Month, some of the residents of Halton really, especially the African Caribbean residents of Halton, said that when they moved to Burlington, they didn't feel there was an inclusive environment for them to thrive, particularly because affordable housing was not even available for newcomers to Burlington. So how would you drive that initiative to support newcomers coming into Burlington to feel included within the municipality? And also in line with that, also to tell us with respect to the education, because I remember a resident of Burlington actually said the education system, their children were being discriminated in terms of the language that was used in school, in the school system. So I really want you to focus more on how we will have a more inclusive Burlington for our children when it comes to education, what policy, and affordable housing for newcomers, because you do know that, and you rightly said that we only have 4,000 subsidized housing for the whole of Halton. We have a larger community coming into these regions, the African Caribbean communities. And I just want to know how you're going to resolve that problem, or what initiatives or programs you would drive towards that housing situation. And then finally, to Ryan, I wasn't going to leave you out. Thank you for sharing. You mentioned that you believe that your family has faced some significant challenges. I will use the word significant, but you can use that word with healthcare in Oakville, North Burlington region. And so could you sort of tell us how you would address or provide policies to be in place with respect to the inequities? Because we all know that COVID sort of provided a more glass ceiling as to how our healthcare system is inequitable for a lot of regular income earners, and especially the African Caribbean community. So I would like to really know from your perspective how you intend to drive an initiative, or what the NDP will be doing to address those inequities in healthcare. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess I start with the first set of questions. Okay, that's Adosa, you have lots of questions. Wow, you were listening. Okay, so let me start with some party policy pieces. The NDP has, in their full platform hasn't been released yet, but we have some general information about the policies that they're looking towards, but we can't answer in very specific dollar amounts as of yet. But we know that the NDP has the most diverse caucus that has ever happened in a political party in this province before. The NDP also has the very first Black caucus. So that's something that is also new and exciting in the party, because we all know that more diversity around a decision-making table makes for better decisions, because more lived experiences, more perspectives help everyone to see where the gaps in their lived experience or understandings are. So that's part of the party's, just the essential makeup of the party. They've committed to millions of dollars. I don't know what the exact number is. I don't want to say and then be wrong about the exact number, for an anti-racism strategy. So, there's ways to deal with the inequity, and this is not my lived experience. I have lots to learn. I've been doing learning, but I don't want to pretend to understand what it's like to be a Black woman in Ontario. I don't know. So my job is, one, to listen, it's to learn, and it's to use whatever privilege and voice I have to try to dismantle white supremacist systems. And the NDP is working to also do that on a policy level. So I can do that in my personal network, and then I can do that in my profession, as in the way that I'm running my classroom. But the NDP wants to also do that at a policy level, because we know that change can come slow and power is slow to let go. So that particular anti-racism strategy is going to be important. They're going to appoint a minister responsible for anti-racism. That's never happened before in the history of the country, let alone the province. So that's something else that they're committing to do. There'll be mandatory anti-oppression and anti-bias training for all public servants. And we know that that doesn't solve everything, but the beginning in some places to have those conversations and language it's not moving far enough, fast enough, but in some places we have to put in policy to make sure that things are moving forward. You asked about my in education, where do I see the issues in education? So de-streaming's been, streaming, I mean, has been really problematic as a result of systemic racism. And we know that children of color in particular, Black boys, have been streamed into more applied level courses as opposed to being offered or supported in their academic streams. We know that the Peel report that came out a couple of years ago about the experiences of young Black male students in Peel region, and they're more likelihood to be suspended, and they're more likelihood to be put into those applied courses, which doesn't give them a pathway to university. We know that those are things that are going on, they're real, and they have long-term effects. So those are things that if I was part of the government and part of, the Ministry of Education, that I would definitely be helping to support Black leaders to work on fixing those systems because they're broken in many regards. We also know that systemic racism impacts mental health. That being weighed down by that kind of oppression, and again, not my lived experience. This is just what I've read and been told. With the lack of access to affordable mental health supports is problematic for everybody. I live in a rural community. There are virtually no mental health supports here, and the ones that you could access cost far too much money. So I've sat with kids young people, older teenagers who talk about watching themselves get sicker and sicker because their families can't afford to pay for counseling and therapy. And their friends whose parents have money there's still not enough support, generally speaking, but you definitely have a better chance of getting support the more money that you have. So we know that that's a problem, that there's an inequity in mental health. We need to work on making sure that schools are functioning centers of the community, that they have wraparound services that provide students with opportunities for co-op positions and social work supports and nursing supports. Schools had those services at one point. We have them a little bit, but they're not nearly enough. And that can help everybody, in particular newcomers, to be able to have access to those resources. When you asked about my role in municipal government, the statistics of, I'm a Wellington County councillor that represents one small ward in Centre Wellington, which is a very small part of Ferguson, Elora. And the Stats Canada statistics show that it's 99.6% white. So when you ask me if I've been able to put forth any municipal level initiatives for the African and Black community, I haven't, not because I wouldn't want to, but because the constituency isn't there. And so where I focused my equity work as a counselor is through climate change initiatives, because that's affecting all of us, as well as Indigenous land acknowledgement work, and been instrumental in helping to start an Indigenous advisory committee at the staff level at county. So those are some of the things that I've been working on and some of the realities that I'm aware of, and also still open and willing to learn more.
So I'll jump in on my two questions. And thank you for those questions, because I think they're both very important. But the need for housing for new communities and racism in education is huge issue that needs to be tackled over the next 4 years because not nearly enough is being done. But let me go to the affordable housing piece first. It is in Halton incredibly hard for new communities. I fully acknowledge that. And it was in my opening remarks as well, but and again, similar to Diane, it is not my lived experience. I've lived a very privileged life, and I haven't been subject to a number of the struggles and concerns that new communities in our region have had. But there are not any supports outside of every so often there's a rush of refugees from Syria or from particular areas that gets a lot of public focus, and then there are specific initiatives for that group of newcomers. In the general sense, we are not as welcoming as we should be to new communities, and particularly we're not welcoming to new communities of people who do not have mass amounts of inherited wealth. And that is something that I very, very much think we need to change here. And I think it permeates not just the affordable housing, but I think it permeates all of our social services in Halton. And Burlington specifically, but across the region, we don't have enough shelters. We don't have enough supports for food insecurity. We don't have enough supports for affordable housing. And a lot of the reaction of our community ends up being, but we can just send them to Hamilton. And that's not good enough. And that's not how we build communities. We need programs that are community focused. And most importantly, we need to be able to listen to those communities. We need to make sure that there are people at all levels of the decision making that we do. One of the things, I'm going to read the words to make sure I get them exactly right, that the NDP promises is that all of our solutions will be implemented through a lens of anti-Black racism, reconciliation, diversity, and inclusion. Those are core values to us to make sure that in every aspect of government, that those things are being included. To your second question on racism and education and racist language and a variety of things, actually the one that really has struck at me over the last couple of months was the young child in the Waterloo School Board who had the police called on them as a 4-year-old because the teacher or whatever the situation was didn't feel that they could handle that situation. And the recognition, almost universal recognition, that that circumstance doesn't happen if that child isn't Black. It is a very clear example of racism permeating the education system. We very much acknowledge that it exists. And I'd like to point you to the wonderful piece of legislation that Laura May Lindo, our MPP in Kitchener Center, brought forth to tackle racism in schools, calling out specifically that there needs to be mandatory racial equity training for all teachers, that there need to be resources in all schools for students who are affected by racism, and that there need to be documented procedures for reporting every incident of racism in a school. And these are just first steps to making sure that we build our schools to be the inclusive communities that we need them to be. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you so much. And to our last representative, Rhyan, over to you. I hope you wrote down the question she asked you.
Oh, no, I kind of remember. So the first question you asked, I believe, was about how my health and my family's health was affected. So to put it in this perspective, before I was on certain amount of benefits, I would have to pay out of my pocket. And it was either that I chose to eat that day or pay for my medication. And that goes to my family. So in that sense, that's what the suffering was about. And I realized that paying for medication is like paying for a payment on a car payment, or even sometimes an apartment, half of your rent. So it's that's the way that we have to get back in the community and help with that, with programs, or try to even like kind of interface with other communities to see how they are suffering and come together and help. And for the NDP stands on that, they are inclusive. They all trying to figure out how we can change the world together and how to come together when it's needed. So that's what it enticed me to join the NDP as a person, because I love to inspire, I love to fight for those and advocate. NDP fell in that bracket for me. And I believe it's like a family, and everything that you do, you put your family into it, you always treat them better, you always look out for them, no matter what. So in that sense, that's why I think NDP is doing what they're doing and loving it. Yeah. The second one was, yeah, so I entered the second one. So yeah.
Thank you so much. We do have some questions in the chat, but before I go on, I do want to make sure that Madam Medusa, did they all answer your questions properly to your liking?
Well, some that I think it's a great start with respect to their responses. Hopefully we'll get more initiatives once NDP puts out their manifesto, right? So that's that's more like what is outstanding. They need to, when they put out a manifesto, then we might get. But it's somewhat. Thank you.
Okay, we do have some questions in the chat.
Can I go?
Yeah, over to you.
So I want to really thank Diane Ballantyne and Andrew Drummond and Rhyan Vincent Smith for all the, for your patience in answering those questions that were asked. I want to throw a wrench in here. When I came to Canada, this is what I heard from my community. 1, the Liberal Party, they like immigrants. 2, the Conservative Party do not like immigrants. 3, the NDP, they like giving money to people that are not working. This is what I heard. So what would you say that the NDP actually stands for? Because Diane, when you were talking, you said regular people. I want to know what that means. Does that include me? I'm a very hard-working person. I came to this country with less than $500. And I work hard to be where I am today. Am I included in that regular, or have I been excluded because I work very hard to be where I am today? So what does tell us in our community what NDP really stand for? Is it what I was told? Was it, kind of twisted? And what does regular people mean? Thank you.
Thanks for that question. That's a great question. And it's the kind of question that we have to face on the campaign trail all the time, because there's stereotypes that are attached to these various different political parties, right? So what you were told right? I don't think so. And I don't think it's right for any of them, actually. I think that when we talk about immigrants, that's more of the federal party. But I would say that the federal Conservative Party has made really strong inroads with immigrant communities and people of color, and mostly connected to conservative social values. They've managed to make inroads there. I think that the federal Liberal Party has also been shown to be welcoming of immigrants. And I think the NDP at the provincial and the federal level are also very welcoming of immigrants, but maybe for different reasons. We need to be supportive of immigration in a really significant, I was just having this conversation earlier with some real estate agents, that, our population is aging. and we're not replacing ourselves. I'm not having 17 children like my grandmother did, right? So our population is aging, which means that they're not going to be taxpayers in the same way anymore. That baby boom is aging out of the workforce. And we're not, the people that are already here in Canada are not replacing ourselves. And so we must have immigration come to build businesses and to have their families and to pay their taxes and to grow our society. The NDP has been labeled the party that wants to give money or wants to tax people. And when you're a hardworking person who has built your business with the $500 that you arrived with in your pocket, what you hear is, I don't want somebody taking my money so someone else doesn't have to work hard. I understand that, but that's not really what the values of the party are. So when we talk about the NDP, and they talk about making sure that there's programs to raise all the boats, right? So we can say that there's some people who maybe aren't working as hard as we might like them to. Or we might say that I deserve to have more money in my pocket. That's the line that the Conservatives always use, because you get to have choice. But you know, you only get to have choice when you've got enough money to pay for those choices. So it's all well and good to say, I'm going to cut your taxes and give you more money in your pocket. And what that means is that education erodes and public health care erodes. It's going to get privatized, and lots of people aren't going to be able to afford to send their kid to a good school or to be able to get education. So we believe in making sure that there is a healthy social safety system that supports everybody. And when we think about how we pay for those things, we have to look at the widening wealth inequality that exists in our society. So there are, I think the average income in my riding is, the average income is somewhere around $86,000, which is a lot. That's above the provincial average, which is around $60,000. But we have people who are making millions and millions and millions of dollars. And because of the way that systems are set up, they're not paying as much income tax as I am as a high school teacher. And so when we talk about how do we pay for those programs, and some of those programs will be about making sure that people on the ODSP, which is on disability, or those who fall on hard times and need to have some Ontario Works support, we need to make sure that those rates are enough so that you don't actually have to go to the food bank as well. I believe that is a fundamental value. Now, does that mean that sometimes people might take advantage of it? Sure. But you know what? I'm willing to risk that so that the rest of the people that do need those services can be looked after with dignity. And so the idea of making sure that there's a bit more of a tax on those people who are making over $500,000 a year, so that we can make sure that there's enough social support for everybody in this province, is going to make this a better, healthier, more vibrant, and hopeful place to live.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, Madam President, was the question answered to your liking, or would you like to delve deeper?
I actually did not introduce myself. My name is Adejisola Atiba, and yes, I'm the president of ACCH, but thank you very much for that. I just wanted to make sure that you're debunking what's in the community, because if people talk about it and you don't hear about it to be able to address it, it really won't, it's not going to help your candidacy or anyone in your party for that matter. And thank you so much. I just want to quickly ask a question to Andrew. Andrew, you talked about the 4-year-old that they call the police on. That actually breaks my heart, because I don't even know what a 4-year-old knows. But I'm happy to say that in Alton, we have a good relationship with the police, and we have a good relationship with the school. And I sincerely hope that we wouldn't see that kind of thing. But if it happens to one, it's just more than enough. And I also want to tie in immigration. I know that Canada opens its doors to a lot of people. I mean, 90% of us are immigrants anyway. So, but it seems that they open their doors to a certain type of people, not necessarily to everyone. And when we look at the Ukraine and Russian war that is going on, and the sad thing that is happening, we see the face of racism come up in terms of some people are, given good support, and people that are exotic looking like us are not. What would you do to make sure that those kind of behaviors, whether it is not being able to support a 4-year-old just because of the color of his skin, or not being able to support refugees running for their lives just because of the color of their skin, what will NDP do to make sure that those kind of things are something they act on? Because at times it's not just about talking, it's about the action. So I would really love to hear what you have to say around that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. It is, I'll be honest, the question tugs at my heartstrings, because we have seen an outpouring of public sympathy. We've seen an outpouring of resources being suddenly made available. And again, let me make sure that, as Diane mentioned as well, most things to do with immigration and settlement of refugees is a federal government thing and not what this election is going to decide. But that said, there has absolutely, we have noticed that there has been more done by the public to help Ukraine than there ever was done in Syria, than there ever has been done in Somalia, than there has been in Eritrea and many other places that have suffered very serious wars, serious famine, and people trying to escape that have not had an easy time getting to Canada. And that is absolutely something that we need to address, that every refugee who comes to this province needs to be treated with respect, needs to be set up in a community where they're going to have a chance at success. And it shouldn't matter where that refugee comes from or what it is that has brought that refugee to our region. If you are here as a refugee, that means you needed to flee your home to get here. And that means that, to Diane's comment from earlier, I mean, the values of the NDP, like, to me, when I explain it to people of what my core value is that I believe that we all have a collective responsibility to take care of each other. And that is there is no place where that is more poignant than when talking about refugees and diverse communities. So, I mean, I don't know if I've answered your question specifically, but I absolutely, again, when we take all of our decision making and put it through a lens of diversity and inclusion, when we consider the intersectionality of everybody's existence and everybody's community and what it is that we need to do, we need to be sure that there aren't communities left behind, and that I really feel your pain with your question. I really do. And I'm also just a politician up here talking, and I recognize that too. And you need action on things and not just people saying words. But it has been incredibly frustrating to all of us that we don't take good enough care of communities, particularly refugees fleeing some of the most terrible wars this world has ever seen. Did I answer the question?
I saw your passion.
Okay.
Thank you. And if I may just hug the floor for one more question, and this is just a very easy one. If there's anybody that wants to support your campaign in the community, and this is for all three of you, what is it that where can we, what can we do? How can we help? So maybe you want to start, Andrew, and then we'll go to.
Sure. I mean, there are lots of things that you can do to help. And most importantly, to make sure like we go out of our way to make sure that everybody helps as they are able to. If you only have half an hour to come in and fold some flyers, then half an hour to come in and fold some flyers. If you want to help and all you can do is make some phone calls from home, we have computer systems where you can do it right from your computer. You don't need to come in. We can train you and make that good to go. You can come around and knock doors with us. Logistically, volunteer.ontariondp.ca. If you get there, you'll get a call from one of our campaigns and we'll hook you up. We would very, very much appreciate anyone who wanted to come out and help us. And most importantly, we appreciate more different perspectives. I've tried very hard in my campaign to reach out to as many community leaders as I can, to different faith groups, to everybody that I can to get, and this is why I really appreciate being invited to this meeting as well, because I have my own lived experience and I know that it is limited, and that the more perspectives I can get and that my team can get from other people as they come out and as we try and build the movement that we're building in Burlington and in Wellington, Halton Hills and in Oakville, North Burlington, the more perspectives we get out to be part of that, the better we're going to be able to serve the needs of the community.
Okay, I'll go next if that's okay. The great thing about political campaigns is that we're all busy. We have lots of responsibilities in our lives, but they're kind of like this short-term intense project, right? The election will be over on June the 3rd. So election day is June the 2nd, but advanced polls open in the middle of May. So it's going to be really intense for the next couple of weeks, and then it's over. So if you can find time to help a candidate, and the great thing about what's happened with all of this Zoom and Google Meet technology is you don't necessarily have to be in the riding that you want of the candidate that you want to help. Now, I'm not trying to steal Ryan and Andrew's volunteers here, but I'm going to say that if you wanted to help out, you can help me out even if you don't live in my riding, because we train you, we set you up with something called Call Hub so that you can make telephone calls with a script and you don't have to know everything. You just have to, you'll have some certain questions and then you just take information and say, the candidate's going to get back to you. And so when you do that, we know that the more individual contacts that a candidate has with someone, the more likely they are to be able to get their vote. And then you have your own networks that influence the people around you because you're engaged political people. You're interested in politics. That's why you're at this meeting tonight. Not everybody is. And you have friends that rely on you and listen to your opinions because you're the hardcore political junkies here in the room, right? And so the idea is that you are that you can find your time to help support. So you can put up a sign, you can make a donation, but you can also go and knock on doors in a physical live sort of situation. But if you don't have a lot of time, you can also just make phone calls on behalf of a candidate. The fact that you're doing this is amazing because you're recording it and you're going to share it with your community, and they will be able to then hear directly from their candidates as well. So there's lots of ways that you can help out, and candidates are and campaigns are won because of the volunteers. That's what makes the difference. You can have a really great candidate, you can even have a really great leader, and you can have a great platform, but if you don't get the opportunity to contact people one-to-one, it's really difficult to make sure that you pull those votes. So I would encourage people to get involved and find a candidate that you believe in. Hopefully it's one of us. And put a little bit of elbow grease into that for the next 4 weeks. That's what I would ask.
One other thing, if I can just jump in with one other little point here, and I think Diane kind of touched on it there too, that I would and I'm sorry, Ryan, that I'm jumping over you, and I'll let you get in a sec, but I would encourage everyone on this call and anyone who sees this, get involved in a campaign. Go look up what the 4, the 5, the 6 candidates in your riding are, see what they believe in, figure out which one aligns to the things that you believe in too, and go volunteer for them. Go put up a sign for them or do something, be involved in the process, because as it was said at the beginning, your vote is your power. So even if it's not for us, go get involved, figure out what you believe in, because I think all three of us very, very strongly believe that if everybody looks at every party, we're going to get the votes to win.
Yeah, so to answer your question, all three of us will have links to like websites that you guys can go to. Unfortunately, because I'm not nominated yet, I don't have a per se email that you guys can reach me at until after the 19th. But everyone will have emails, websites, Instagram, Twitter. What else am I missing? There's something else I'm missing. But yeah, there's social media coverage that you could possibly go and find us on and connect to get better information and figure out what we're doing and volunteering areas, such and such. And yeah.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Manuel.
Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone for continuing with the answers. Okay, there's a question in the chat that says, affordable housing cuts across everyone. Please, what are you planning in tackling the prices of building materials, reduce the cycle of building permits, approvals, and provide incentives for smart homes that consider clean environment into development? Yeah. Let me know if you need me to say that one more time.
Can you repeat that, sorry?
Not a problem at all. So, affordable housing cuts across everyone. What are your plans in tackling the price of building materials, reduce the cycle of building permits approvals, and provide incentives for smart homes that consider clean environments into development process?
So I can start that if you'd like. So one, I don't think that we're going to be able to address the cost of building materials, quite honestly. I don't think that that's something that we can do. And if we can, I'm not aware of how that could be a provincial policy. That's a supply and demand issue, and it's really expensive now because COVID hit productions. And it's been harder and harder to get your 2x4s and build your deck or whatever, because of the demand and the supply. I think that will level itself out in a few more years, but right now we're dealing with 30% increases in building materials, which is wild, but unfortunately we are in a global pandemic. So that's kind of part of that. The other part about building permit approvals, that's also not exactly a provincial responsibility because I'm at the municipal level. I know that they're the ones that issue the building permits. And again, I mentioned it earlier, I was just sitting with real estate agents this afternoon and we were talking about that. There is a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of red tape that happens at the municipal levels that can be dictated by the provincial government. But I also don't think that we should be forcing municipal councils and fining them if they don't make decisions quickly enough, because that can lead to sprawl or poor infilling and density creation. So that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have infilling and density. We definitely should, but it needs to be thoughtful. I mean, we are in a crisis now because years of previous governments haven't done things properly. And I don't want to just push everything through because we're in a panic. That's reactive policy making. You know, the conservative government under Ford cut the housing program by $160 million, even though the federal government, the Liberals, gave them $100 million to work with. and the affordable housing wait lists have gone up by 36%. So the NDP's policy, according to the documents that we have at this point, is to build 69,000 more affordable homes, and work on the missing middle of rental stock. A lot of people talk about home ownership, but really the big crunch is in rental stock and being able to find a place that you can live and pay an affordable rent, reasonably close to where you're going to have your job. So there are policies in place that we will work through to make that happen. And then we've got the Green New Democratic Deal that talks about, in that document, about environmental retrofits for existing housing stock, as well as incorporating more environmental and clean energy into future developments. So I think there's like 3 questions in there, but I think I covered all of them.
Yes, you did. And thank you for clarifying what falls under federal and provincial as well. Before I move on to the next questions, would anyone else like to add anything?
I just want to tag on, because everything Diane said is absolutely what it is that we're trying to do. I just want to emphasize one additional point on the housing piece, that we need to control housing prices in general. And one of the reasons that housing gets more expensive, and by extension why rental housing gets more expensive, is we, to this point, the governments of the last 2 decades haven't done anything to go after the people who make money when housing prices go up. We haven't done anything to get rid of blind bidding. We haven't done anything to tax real estate interest trusts. We haven't done anything to really go after speculators. And until we do those things, we're not going to be able to make any appreciable difference on housing prices. Housing prices are going to keep going up because the people doing the things that make it go up are allowed to keep doing those things. Our transit critic, Jessica Bell, was in a condo building in Toronto, not in our region, but a couple of weeks ago, and 60% of the units in that building were vacant because they're just real estate investments. We have so much housing that we're not using. We need to provide financial punishments to people who buy up housing that could be affordable housing and don't use it because they're just sitting on it for investments. I just wanted to cover the point that one of the things the NDP is really going to go after are the systemic reasons that housing prices go up, and the things that aren't going to be solved just by sprawling onto farmland with more luxury homes, because that's not going to solve any problem other than if you happen to think that housing developers need more money, it might solve that one.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification, and also pointing out the fact that there are other underlying issues that we need to also focus on, such as the blind bidding and also having just property just for investment stake and not for anything other than, supporting like a gift, maybe a gift to your child or something. So thank you for adding on to it. And I'm not seeing any more questions, but please, before I dismiss them and they run off, please type your questions, raise your hand. Let's keep them here as long as possible, because we don't know the next opportunity we might have. So.
Well, and just to jump in on that point too, like if you don't have a question now or you don't feel comfortable making it in a public forum, you can find all of us online. You can email us the questions. We will respond individually. I guarantee you any of us will reply to any question that we get.
And now we have an open door. So please, if you don't have a question now, write it down. Maybe if you're scared, start typing up an email, because this is really a great opportunity to better know our candidates and also really participate in this discourse that's going on. Thank you for putting in your Twitter handle and Instagram. I will be following you momentarily.
Can I call Mr. DJ Conan? Would you like to just say a word or two? Is one of the leaders in the Francophone communities. Do you want to unmute and say something, Mr. DJ Conan?
Sorry, guys, I was on mute. Yeah. No, thank you very much, guys. I joined a little bit late. Sorry, I was still at work, but So I mean, like, it's a really good opportunity for everybody to know what's going on and what the candidates you guys are proposing. So I think it's a good. From where I connect with you guys, I got some really good information that I will relate to the team and see how they can together, like as volunteering or any other stuff to be involved in the whole campaign. I will share those information and see how we can connect with you guys. Thank you again for what you guys are doing here. Thanks.
Thank you so much for pitching in. Is there anyone else you want to volunteer? Yeah, volunteer. You're on mute, madam. You don't want the $10 surcharge?
There are a few people in the line. I mean, it's a very small group. If we can get as many people to speak up as possible, it would be nice. I know, Mr. Awoyalu, you did ask a question, that long one about construction, because he's an engineer and project into project management. So everybody tends to ask questions that relates to them. Mr. Awoyalu, I don't know if you want to add anything more.
Thank you for the opportunity, Madam. I only want to thank the folks that have put themselves out here today. And the questions have been answered, I believe, thoroughly. Will be just like Emmanuel said, we'll follow you up on your Twitter handles and on all those social media platforms that you've put out here. Just to add, you'll get in, do not forget ACCH. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Awoyalu. I just want to, and I know that Andrew did mention that do get involved. It's important to get involved. We can't sit back and complain that things are not working the way we want it to work. When there's an opportunity for us to learn, how did you get here, Andrew? What can I do to help you, Andrew? How can I even get in, to things like this? When we're not where decisions are made, there's really nothing we can do about it. We want to make sure we're involved, we learn the system, and we become a part of the system. At the very onset, the first thing that was said is our vote is our power. But let's not just limit it to our vote. Let's also get involved. Let's learn the process. And we can learn the process through this very amazing candidate that keeps, they join us every time we call. And it's really a pleasure to meet you all. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your passion. I can see you're very, very passionate about NDP. And I've actually learned a lot. So please, if there's anything I want everybody to take away today, it is get involved. Do not sit on the sidelines. Thank you.
Can I add one more thing? While of course we want you to get involved with a campaign, I would love to hear from somebody that would like to help out with the campaign. I would also really encourage you to run in the municipal election. The municipal election is coming up in the fall. And if you look for your city or town government, they are going to start having information meetings right around now. The one in my community is at the end of April. And there's also this other thing that I'm involved in called Municipal Campaign School. I'm typing while I'm talking. And I'm just, hopefully I will spell it right. Campaignschool.ca. So that's a project that I'm also working on. Oh, it just went away. I'll type it up in a minute. And the whole purpose of that project, Municipal Campaign School, is to help underrepresented people to get elected to local councils, whether as a school trustee or as a city councillor. And so I'm going to put that in the chat, and I would really like you to share that with your community as well, because there's lots of resources on that site that a friend of mine have been working with to say, okay, no offense, Andrew, but let's get too many of them. There's not men yet, but there's definitely enough men. And let's work to create more diverse council tables so that there are better decisions being made. started. Help out on a political campaign right now. Check out Municipal Campaign School. You're already leaders in your community if you were talking and facilitating this meeting. And think about making a run for municipal council in the fall. That election's in October.
Thank you for actually putting that in the chat, because a couple days ago I saw a post that said Doug Ford's nephew or maybe son is trying to get him to start running, and I thought to myself, hey, since he wants to start, maybe when I'm done this stage of my life and when I come back, why not? I have some connections here. Finally, I have three more connections. Maybe I'll run. Maybe I'll run.
You know what? I lost 3 times before I won. It's okay to run and not win that time. You learn through the journey. You provide hope for people to see someone different. I ran because I wanted my teenage daughters to see women in leadership. And that, sure, was I not happy when I lost the first time? Of course. But you dust yourself off and you talk about what you learned through that process. You're not going to win all the time, but that doesn't mean that there isn't value in the process and in the journey.
Go,
I
Emmanuel.
want to
Go.
jump in, please. Sorry. I want to just say, Diane, thank you for sharing that. I think that's one of the strongest weaponry that ACCH has is advocacy. So when you talk about the process, when you give out information and you educate people, it allows for a lot of newcomers to Canada to feel inclusive, because inclusion means that you belong. And the only way you can belong is to be part of the process. So a lot of newcomers to Canada, when I'm talking about newcomers, I'm talking about people that have been here for 20, 30 years. They don't feel that they belong because they don't know how to be, they don't understand the process. And so I'm so glad you put it out there, because people want to feel that they belong. This is home. Canada's strength is in its diversity. And we talk about inclusion and equity and EDI all the time, but the action is part of what we really want to see. And that's the mandate behind ACCH, and our focus is really to elevate the community. Elevating the community means everyone is either an ally or a friend. Elevating the community means that we want to see ourselves in our government, because our government does not represent the people. When I use the word does not represent, I mean the voice of the people is the voice of the government, and the people are not reflective of the government, then some people will not feel included or feel that their values or their interests are being heard, because everybody wants to be heard and everybody wants to be seen as well. So I'm just thanking you and Andrew and of course Ryan for coming here to speak to us and coming here to really give us value for what this community is all about. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mendoza.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
to the three of you for those impactful words. And I'll be handing it back off to our moderator, Ms. Christine McIntosh. Over to you.
There we go. Oh, working off of a small phone screen is not favorable. Very, very informative session. Thank you, first of all. Thank you for putting all of the information in the chats. I think we've learned so much today. It's been a really great dialogue. Great to have everybody on here. Lots of questions, tough ones, but necessary. And we appreciate you being candid and open and transparent as we go through this journey of learning together. So at this stage, I'd like to turn it over again to our good friend Adosa for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Christine. So on behalf of ACCH, we really want to thank the candidates for taking our time to come to just tell us more about the NDP platform, because like Adejisola Lady Abba had said, when newcomers come to Canada, I'm very particular about words, because words have powerful meaning. So I'm not using the word immigrant, because I think when you've lived in Canada for live in Canada for 4 or 5 years, or even 2 years or 6 months, you're no longer an immigrant. You are a newcomer. And I know that when history of Canada is being reported, we don't call the white settlers that came in here, we don't call them immigrant anymore. So we call them settlers, actually. And so I'm very careful about using immigrants to classify a marginalized group. I don't think that's the right terminology, so bear with me. So when we want to really applaud and thank most especially the NDP candidates for coming here to tell us more about their platform, what they represent, what their values are, and why our community, the African Caribbean community of Halton, should really look into their portfolios and their platform to see, to understand what choices that they need to make before the elections on June 2nd. I also want to thank all those who were able to join today. We do know that a lot of people are working, and we're glad that we're going to have this posted on several social media platforms. So I want to thank all those who could come, especially our volunteers, our host, Christine McIntosh. Thank you so much for being the wonderful host that you are. Emmanuel, thank you for taking the Q&A. And to those on the phone, I can't see their names, but I want to thank you for joining us at least, but especially to our leadership team of ACCH, our advisory board, and our STEAM volunteers. We ask you to please join the NDP to volunteer with them as well, if you can. And most especially, hopefully the community would see the importance of being involved and active in the politics that concerns their children's education, that concerns decisions that affect all of us. We hope that they would participate and be engaged. On behalf of the ACCH leadership and the ACCH team, I want to thank all of you for joining us this evening. I hope you have a wonderful night, and we will follow you on your social media handles just so that we'll be able to continue to engage and elevate our communities. Thank you all for coming, and have a wonderful, restful evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everyone.
Lisa. And can I just add happy Easter to everyone that celebrates Easter, and enjoy the long weekend. Thank you so much.
Happy Easter.
Thank
Thank
you
you
all.
all so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.